Right there.
So it's a live stream.
We're doing live stream. Right now. You are on both Facebook and YouTube, even as we speak. So let me get us started here. Hello again, good people, and welcome to the To Be Encouraged live stream. I'm Reverend Dr. Brad Miller, coming to you from the floor of the Indiana Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church. There are some 1,200 delegates here. We're all around the state, all around, really connected to the world, and then people connected to various missions and ministries that we have connected to the Indiana Conference United Methodist Church, who are here representing their organizations. And that includes our special guest who's here today. And why don't you just tell us your name, where you're from, and who you represent?
Hey, Robert. Yes, my name is Lee Randall, and I am here representing Mission Guatemala, a ministry that is born here in Indiana from a vision of Tom Heaton, a pastor here in the Indiana Annual Conference. I live in Greenville, South Carolina, and get to work from my home, but I have the blessing of coming yearly here to the Indiana Annual Conference and then also visiting with churches both around Indiana and around the United States, as well as in Guatemala when folks are there serving alongside us in mission. So I'm grateful to have the opportunity to visit with you today.
We're grateful to have spent a few minutes here with you, Lee.
Yes.
And I happen to be, know and have a relationship with Tom Heaton, your founder, and know he's not able to be with us this week, and glad that you're here to share here at the annual conference. I think I got a handle on it, but I really like for you to share with our listeners kind of a synopsis of the overall vision of Mission Guatemala, and then what are some of the things you actually do?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, founded by United Methodist pastor Tom Heaton, who felt God calling him to be a dad. As a single man, obviously that would be a difficult thing to accomplish, but I think all of us would agree that when God calls you, he will make a way, as long as you just continue to follow God's calling. Tom was able to adopt 2 boys from Guatemala and raise them here stateside for a number of years, and then felt God calling him to pick up his family and move to the country where his sons were born. He took that vision to Bishop Coiner, and I had the opportunity a number of years ago to visit with Bishop Coiner to hear his side of the story. I'd always heard Tom's side of the story, and Bishop Coiner talks about how Tom came into his office with this vision to move his family to Guatemala to serve there, to help do all the good he could in the country where his sons were born. And Bishop Coiner said, Lee, I really thought he had lost his mind. And,
I've heard a bit of the story.
Yeah,
yes.
And so Bishop Coiner then said, Tom, thanks for sharing this vision with me. I'd like for us to set up a meeting in a few weeks. And so Tom agreed to come back and talk with him again. And Bishop Coiner said from the moment Tom left his office, he picked up the phone and started calling every pastor friend and pastor mentor of Tom's to say, you've got to help me talk him out of this. This is just a crazy idea. The time came for them to meet again, and Bishop Coiner said from his desk he saw Tom turn the corner, moving down the hallway to his office, and he said he knew before he even arrived in his office that vision and that passion was there and even stronger than when he had left his office a number of weeks before. So we're grateful that Bishop Coiner blessed this crazy dream of Tom's that we know was God-inspired, because we're getting ready to celebrate 13 years of ministry in Guatemala, where we have the blessing to work alongside the most beautiful people I think that God has created, in my opinion. Tom's vision was also a vision of Dave Burns, who currently serves as our executive director, and together they were able to found Mission Guatemala. The hope then was to provide medical care for the indigenous Mayan population, and not just health care, but health care that was quality, that was loving and respectful. And so that's how it began, with just a medical clinic. We now have a Guatemalan doctor and 3 Guatemalan nurses on staff. And as we continued to see needs in the area, we also have a nutritional program that once was a feeding program in the school, but the Guatemalan government has increased their support of those programs. So we've shifted our focus to our early childhood nutritional program we call Niños Chispitos, for children 6 months through 6 years of age. And so in addition to health and nutrition, we also have an educational program. The Guatemalan government readily provides its people an education through elementary school, which is 6th grade in Guatemala. But we know that continuing your education through middle school and high school is just vital. The gift of education can begin to help break these cycles of poverty that we see. And so our scholarship program provides the opportunity for students who have the desire and the abilities but don't have the means to pay for. $25 a month is what it costs on average for a middle school student to go, and about $50 a month for a high school student to go.
Which is out of sight for many folks there, but a pittance for many folks here in the States.
Absolutely, yeah. So families there typically survive on $4 to $6 a day is kind of a typical wage for the population that we serve in the San Andres Cimataba area. And you can see pretty quickly if you have a family of 5 or 6, people, mom, dad, and children, it's not only hard, it's nearly impossible to then be able to pay for an education. So even though families would like to provide that for their children, they're just really not able to. So the scholarship program kind of helps meet those needs. And then a fourth way that we serve is we call it community development, but we host teams to serve alongside us who have typically come to help us with projects that have been identified in the communities. Most often those include building bathrooms, hand washing stations at schools, as well as classrooms in the schools or soccer/basketball courts. The rainy season in Guatemala is pretty detrimental, and so to have a place where children can gather and play is important. So we're hosting a team right now from Malden, South Carolina, who are serving with us, and next week we're welcoming a team from Illinois. So we're just excited to get to serve the way we do in Guatemala.
So several ways that really tangible, hands-on mission and ministry is happening. You got the education piece, the medical piece, the food service piece, and the community development mission teams coming in all kinds of ways. And those are all about, life transformation. Give us an example of how you've seen things change. I'll tell you personally now, how you've seen things change or transform. Give me a little impact statement of what's been happening there from where, was to where it is now.
Yeah, so I think, it's that God-sized dream that was placed in the heart of Tom Heaton that at the time I don't think he would have even begun to imagine how God would water that seed and allow for this ministry to continue to grow. We've seen there are countless stories that I could share. I'll just share one that's really close and personal to me, but also to our organization. In our scholarship program, one of the students, whose name is Ingrid, had a passion for medical care and had a desire to become a doctor. And in the Guatemalan system, during those high school years, you really get kind of a trade-type degree. So students who have an interest in education, for example, would become, as they graduate, a teacher's aide or an early level teacher in the country. If you have a passion for accounting, you could become an accounting assistant as you graduate with your high school degree. And in the medical interest, if you have a passion for that, you would become a nurse's assistant. And so Ingrid was a student in our program who came to us with they have to find internships. And so she had approached our clinic staff about doing her internship with us and came and worked with us during her high school time to accomplish those internship requirements. And as she graduated from high school, had this desire to continue her education in the medical field. And we also found that we had an opening on our staff to have a need for a nurse's assistant. And so she joined our staff a few years ago, about 3 to 4 years ago, as that nursing assistant. And as she's worked with us and continued to improve her skills, she's developed a passion for our laboratory offering that we have there at our clinic. So we have lab facilities on site where we can do all of the testing that we need to do so that our doctor can diagnose and treat things well. And so she's working to be a lab technician herself now, and so she works in our clinic and is, not only has it but changed her life personally, but her family's life, and what we love is that it also changes the life of her
Change one life, it
community.
changes others. And isn't
Absolutely.
it cool when you see a story about Ingrid and how her life transformation is multiplied by many other stories like her and similar stories
Absolutely.
of people been multiplied in the setting there in Guatemala.
Yes.
Let's talk for a minute about life change and transformation among folks who've been there.
Yeah,
I got a feeling
absolutely.
you went there one time as on a trip, and you're
Absolutely.
still there. So
Yeah.
that's your one life transformation change, and I just figured that'd be the case. But tell me a story about either individuals or maybe a group. You've mentioned two. I know personally of many groups from here in Indiana where we're at who've gone, and I know they're all around the country who've gone there. But tell me about how a life change situation either happened individually or maybe even a church where something profound happened after a trip to Mission Guatemala.
Yeah, again, countless stories that can be shared, and I hate to share another one that's so close and personal, but I will share about my oldest son, who was with me on the first trip that I led. I was a youth minister for 20 years, and starting in 2013, we took our older youth and our youth program, primarily our graduates, as their senior trip. We had a couple of openings on that first trip, and we published it in our bulletin there. And with the first two people that come and show interest and want to go can go with us. So a female student who was a rising junior in high school, and my son, who was also a rising junior in high school, were the first that came to me that Sunday morning. And I hadn't mentioned it at home, and so it was neat that my own son read the need and answered the call, so to speak. So along he came with me on that first trip to Guatemala.
But how old was he at the time?
He was 15, 16.
Okay. Awesome.
And didn't know exactly, how God would use him in this world. Came on that trip and immediately felt this calling and desire to further his life in the medical field as well. And so he just recently graduated from the Medical University of South Carolina and is beginning his residency as a pediatrician in North Carolina at Chapel Hill at UNC. And he'll also receive a master's in public health while he's there, with this desire and this passion that I really feel like was planted and placed in his life from serving in Guatemala back in 2013.
And so in some way or another, that will continue, some sort of
Absolutely.
an ongoing connection.
Absolutely. So
with
it's
Mission Guatemala or missions.
missions in general. Yeah, the hope to serve not only people here within the states, and just knowing that there is such a need for doctors who not only treat the illness, but also are willing to invest in the lives of the people that they see. And so it's neat to see that playing out in the life of my own son as well.
Yeah. Well, Lee, you've mentioned a little bit about the history of Mission Guatemala and Tom Heaton's involvement. We had founded. And there's a big story about him driving his car from Indiana all the way down there. We both have heard that story. That's a fascinating story in and of itself. But there's that founding story. And you talk a little bit about what's happened there on site of the mission, and stories about Ingrid, and stories of transformation here in the States, your son, and the many groups that have been there, and how it's all powerful and transformational. But you've also mentioned the need still remains great, does it not?
Absolutely.
So how can folks who may be listening to us, and how can they maybe participate or understand or make a connection to the needs of Mission Guatemala, and tell us how they can be supportive of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I was born and raised in the United Methodist Church, and so I love the, prayers, presence, gifts, service, witness, right? So when we talk about how folks can live that out and basically be a part of the Mission Guatemala story through your prayers primarily. I mean, pray for our staff, pray for the people that we get to serve alongside in Guatemala, pray for mission teams that are there, about 15 to 18 weeks out of the year. With your presence. I mean, you can come and serve alongside us, if you feel called to do that, to come and learn more about the culture and the customs, to get to meet the people and really develop relationships. That also covers that service time, to be able to really serve with your hands. Your gifts, I mean, I've mentioned some direct ways, that $25 a month can send a student to middle school and $50 a month can send a student to high school. But, we have a staff of 13 Guatemalan people. I mean, we need to keep the lights on in our clinic, and we need to stock the shelves with the vitamins and the minerals and the nutrients that our doctor can then use to help meet the medical needs of the population that we serve. So truly with your gifts, missionguatemala.com, just check us out online, and that's a direct way that you can give.
And you mentioned like $25 gifts, $50 gifts, but if Sunday school classes or whole churches or mission teams, had, I'm sure there's opportunities to make even bigger contributions.
Exactly. And then the final is witness. I mean, just, whether you've heard about us and are able to then share the story with your family and friends and people that have a passion for education or a passion for nutrition or a passion for medical care. And many people have come and served alongside us in person and then are able to, when you get to see and get to experience up close, and get to develop relationships, it's so easy to then go and share the story with others, because I really do feel like God is truly writing an incredible story for all. I mean, there are nonprofits all around the world and here in the States, and all it takes is for us to say, I'd like to be a part of that story.
I consider it a modern miracle story of a vision coming to fruition and expanding, and God doing a cool thing.
And I don't think the story's done. I feel like we're, we all in mission and ministry will continue to work until there's not a need for us, and until this earth looks a whole lot more like heaven. So I still, feel like that could happen. If we keep
I love the way you
together.
phrase it. Till earth looks a lot more like heaven. So we got a lot of work to do. Give us the website one more time.
Yeah, it's missionguatemala.com. You can also find us at missionguatemala.org. Either of those will link you right to our website, where you can read about the story. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to share more about our story with you.
We'll put links to that to our website,
Awesome.
tobeencouraged.com. Just one more question for you, Lee. The theme of Bishop Trimble's podcast, it's called To Be Encouraged.
Yes.
So just one more question I'd like to ask all of our guests, and that is to share what is at least one thing that encourages you right now as we sit here together.
Yeah. I think, I shared that I was born and raised in the United Methodist Church, and while there is this underlying feeling of discomfort with the fact that our family is going through a time of trial and tribulation, where some family members have chosen to walk away from the United Methodist Church. I think the thing that brings me hope is that as United Methodist, I mean, we are people of social justice. We are people who want to help continue to direct positive change in this world. We're people who believe in deep relationships, and even though there's been a discomfort in what's been happening in our family, so to speak, I don't think that vision has been lost. And so what brings me just a feeling of excitement is what the United Methodist Church will look like as we turn the page on this next chapter that's yet to be written.
Yeah.
So.
Well said. Turn the page for the next chapter and see what God's going to do, right?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, tell us one more time your name and who you represent.
Lee Randall with Mission Guatemala.
Thank you so much. And Lee has been our guest today on the To Be Encouraged podcast, coming to you live on the live stream from the Indiana Conference of the United Methodist Church. Thank you, Lee.
Thanks, Robert.